Hey guys, how's it going? Do y'all remember Anthem? You know, that big live service game that was going to let us become the exosuit space fighters we all wanted to become? Yeah, me neither. I remember this game being a huge thing back when it was teased to us years ago, and then a few months after that, I'd just forgotten about it. In fact, I don't think I ever heard anything about it past its launch. I had forgotten about it for so long now that I was able to pick up the game the other day for quite literally less than $2. Which again is insane to think about this because this game was supposed to be revolutionary. Well, I bring it back to your attention today through the eyes of a complete noob. I've never played this game before and I haven't looked anything up for it aside from a review that Rogue Gold did on it in early 2024, and that was purely to decide if it was worth the $2 to spend. Now, as a disclaimer, I am not going to do a complete game review of this, nor is this a sort of let's play. I just want to document my experience as a noob in a game I was excited for way back when, and if you guys like it, I'll revisit it and make another video for it eventually. Now, with all that being said, and skipping past the lore, we are thrown into the tutorial area by crash landing into a rock floor after being thrown out of the sky by a wyvern. Now, we all know what tutorials do, so I'm not going to go into any details about any of that, but I will say that the story that this builds is very descriptive and at the same time really vague. As soon as we are back on our feet, we have to regroup with the rest of our allies that have already been downed in combat, so it's up to us to revive them. After killing a few scorpions and getting our guys back on their feet, I run into a cutscene where the team lead and a few expendables are fighting what I believe is called a titan. The two expendables get killed before the team lead kills the titan, two more show up and we have to evacuate anyway, like we should have done in the first place, and see. Now we fast forward some years and through some lore dropping cutscenes we find out that the freelancers, that's the name of the people that pilot the javelins, which are the exoskeletons that we are using now, have all pretty much disbanded at this point, and for the most part, the work we are doing is all completely solo and still very much dangerous. But now we are back to the gameplay, and we finally get to learn how to fly, which is really cool because I don't think there were a lot of games out when this released that had a free flight mode like this in their games. Even now in 2025, I don't think there are many games out that have that feature. Anyway, getting back to the game, we've been tasked with doing a bit of work out in the wilds, reactivating what looks like a generator, and then making our way down into a cave where we can activate a scanner. Activating the scanner attracts in more of those scorpions from the tutorial area, so naturally we have to defend the scanner from these creatures. Once the scanner is finished, our friend on the other end of our comms is getting some strange readings from it, and wants us to go activate another one just to be sure of our findings. After a bit of flying and some waiting around, we're told that the readings that we are getting are definitely off, and that we need to go and activate one more scanner to narrow down the location that these strange findings are coming from. And so, after a bit more flying, we find ourselves at the next scanner, and it's cluttered with some wyverns, and I'm tasked with the job of exterminator. Once the wyverns are dead and the scanner is finished, we find out that there's definitely a problem with what's going on here, and we need to fix it immediately before the problem actually gets out of hand. Apparently, we've got to make our way into this Forerunner site known as Shaper Ruins, that contain this relic from an era before men that was used in creating this world and its creatures. It isn't long before we make it into the main antechamber and find out that the relic is definitely out of control and is nearly ready to cause a cataclysm. And the only way to prevent that is to place these fragment pieces that have fallen out of the relic back into the relic, which will shut down the Shaper energy portal thing. And after doing so, we are awarded with a cutscene. I won't make you guys watch all the cutscenes that I come across, but I just have to show you how beautiful this game is. I know I'm just starting in this game, but just knowing that they've abandoned this project entirely makes me feel a little bad, seeing that this game had a lot of thought and time put into it. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. We're still only in the early game, and I don't even know what the rest of the game is like yet. But it's still a really beautiful game.
news story. That time a relic spawned a giant insect that almost ate you whole.
Yeah. Classic for the ages. I'd say that fulfills the contract.
Time to get back to Fort Tarsus. Two-way job. Well done.
The only kind there is. I'm on my way.
But getting back on track, since we've completed the mission, we are taken back to Fort Tarsus, our home in this world, safe enough from the creatures and atrocities from outside of the wall. We're told to head to the Enclave, a small sect of rooms within the fort that is designated to the freelancers and their teams. So heading there, we find ourselves staring at these hourglasses. These hourglasses are actually challenges we can take on for different rewards on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. I don't know much about them now, but I'm sure with time I'll be able to figure them out, just like with Destiny. A little further into the Enclave and we get to meet Owen. Remember that buddy on the other side of our comms earlier? This is him, and I think, emphasis on the think, he's an Arcanist. Ah, correction, he's a Cipher. I won't go too much into it, but just know that all freelancers are accompanied by one in their missions. Owen just doesn't have a suit to use, so he helps us from the back lines within the safety of the walls of the fort, probably for the best that way. Owen tells us to head back to the forge and tune up our javelin, but when we get there, we're greeted by a woman by the name of Tassin, who has a mission for us. She's tasked us with finding this man named Matthias, a missing Arcanist with an extremely vast knowledge of Shaper artifacts and an extremely high-value target. So we take the job. Easy enough, it's just a missing persons case. And for taking the job, she's also given us the ability to get us a new javelin. Ours was old and worn out from the very first mission we ever ran as a freelancer, referring back to the tutorial mission. So, it's about time for an upgrade. We have 4 that we can choose from, but at the current moment, we can only pick 1. We can either choose from the Storm, the Ranger, the Colossus, or the Interceptor. And as much as I would love to choose the hulking, badass mass of steel, I think for the time being, I want to prioritize my speed. So I took the Interceptor. And with that selection, it's time for us to go on the hunt. Jumping into the mission, we're just following the objective checkpoints, flying or running into each one until we make it to the last known location of Matthias. We then activate his equipment, even though it looks like it caused an explosion, and we are immediately greeted with an ambush party full of scars. I'm not exactly sure what scars are. They're humanoid in stature for sure, but I don't think they're actually fully human. But whatever, we'll figure that out later. For now, let's take a look at the combat. This is where we get our first taste of it, as this is our introduction to enemies with guns. And while it's not a difficult fight, it's not really invigorating either. Just getting a hang of things for the first time is a bit weird because you're just kind of thrown into it without much prior combat experience. Not to mention we just took on an entirely new javelin, which comes with multiple new functions over our original suit, so I have to figure out what each button click does and how to properly use it in combat. Outside of your ammunition, it looks like you have an unlimited use of your equipment and gear, so far. The only thing that keeps you from spamming them is a cooldown to each ability. The Toxin Cloud Grenade is most definitely a skill that will be seeing a lot of use in the future though. That being said, we've got an ultimate ability we can use, and I'm assuming this ability is unique to each javelin. The Interceptor's ability being a flurry of quick melee attacks that can jump back and forth between multiple enemies in a quick succession. I definitely won't forget to use this in the future. But moving on, once we've destroyed the hive, the scars stop spawning in and we can move on to the next area in our search for Matthias. A little more running, jumping, and flying, and we make our way into another area where we find out that Matthias isn't here, but we got introduced into a new enemy type. Still part of the Scar faction, but it's a big, heavily armored brute with a shield that covers nearly every inch of its body. This is where those toxin grenades came particularly in handy, because so long as I can throw it in his path, or at least directly on top of him, he's going to breathe in that death air. But eventually the fight was won and we had conquered our new friend. With him down, we can continue to find Matthias. Moving on, we eventually catch up to Matthias and find out that he's actually taken refuge in an old ruin and is kinda a badass. Having rigged up some traps to at least slow and or maim his pursuers, they worked pretty well for the most part, but they do eventually set off the last trap and it's up to us to fight off these swarms of enemies. This took me a minute to complete. With the swarms of these guys consistently spawning, a slow rate of fire paired with a really low damage output, and 2 more of these big armored guys having spawned in, and we're in a bit of a pickle, and at some point, we get a bit overwhelmed with the amount of fire being lobbed our way. But eventually, after multiple tactical retreats, that's what we're gonna call it, I am able to fell the first of these big brutes, and soon after the second. And with that, Matthias is saved, and we can head back home to a job well done. Upon making our way back to the fort, I am immediately greeted by Matthias, grateful for his rescue, Tassin, and now a new face, Freelancer Yarrow. They explain some weird stuff they've been finding to us and think that it is connected to an old military faction known as the Dominion. And with that thrilling revelation, Yarrow decides to lore dump on us, and to spare everyone from having to sit through that, I'm gonna leave the video off here. I'm gonna be honest, first thoughts for their game that's been completely abandoned at this point, I think this was a great first impression, and I'm having a lot of fun with the combat. It looks like a lot of time went into developing this game, and I can see the vision for what they had planned for this. Even though there's no more support for this game, and I doubt it'll ever see another update, I'm still excited to play more of this. It's really fun. And like I said earlier, if you guys want to see more, I will make more videos on this. But with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. And if you think you want to come back and see more, then subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next video. Y'all take it easy now.